We're live.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to a very special edition of this week's job search Q&A call. As many of you know and have already sent in your resumes, today is going to be all about resume reviews. But for those of you who have been here before, you're going to notice a brand new shining face that we have on the team here. So my name's Katie. I'm a coach at Career Sprout. This is Danielle. She is now also officially one of our newest coaches at Career Sprout. And then, of course, this is, I don't think I'm actually pointing to the right way. I think it ends up mirrored when we go live. This is Gaurav, who is the founder of Career Sprout. Danielle, welcome aboard officially. You picked a nice day to come on. You have any golden nuggets that you'd like to share before we dive into some resume reviews here?
No, I'm just really excited to be here. I'm happy that we're going to be going over this. I think this is a kind of a small piece, but a big piece at the same time. So it's going to be really great to have people listen and hear some of these golden nuggets.
Awesome. Gaurav,
Well,
would you like to give our disclaimer about how we feel about resumes before we
yes.
spend?
First of all, second what you said, K-Mac, welcome to the team, Danielle. For those of you who are on live, it seems like we have like 40-something people live. First and foremost, welcome. In the chat, just let us know where you're from, where you're listening from, what positions you're going after. That would be super helpful. And just so you know how this is going to go today, we're going to just quickly start by just giving some of our thoughts on resumes, which I'll take over. And then we will just start sharing resumes live for the ones that have come in. But if there's anyone here who is also live that wants us to review their LinkedIn profile, their resume, let us know. And if we have time to fit it in this hour, we certainly will. So first and foremost, why is it that most people's resumes don't convert into interviews? And the number one reason for that, there's only really two reasons, is one, your resume has too much of the wrong information, or your resume has very little of the right information. And I think especially when we work with people who have done so much in their careers, they feel extremely compelled to use their resume to talk about everything that they've ever done. And what this does is it kind of causes readers fatigue. And it makes it really hard when you're talking about everything you've ever done to speak to the one role you're going after. And you're going to notice as we go through this, we're going to walk you through the 4 components that make up a successful resume. And those components are: 1, a really well written summary that speaks to the position that you are targeting. Then a responsibilities section that speaks to what you did, that is again relevant to the role you're going after. And then a data-driven accomplishment section that also tells the world, here's what I achieved. And then the last component of it is really making sure that the whole thing is keyword optimized so that it shows up in search results. I think people think if I just apply to more jobs, I'll get more interviews. And it's like, no, I think it's not about the number of jobs you apply to. It's about how well you're marketing yourself. And so that's the purpose of today's call. We're going to teach you how to market yourself. We're going to do live resume reviews and edits and LinkedIn profile reviews and edits. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, K-Mac. And again, welcome everyone. It's good to see you all.
So we are going to start now. I've got a lot that just came through via email, so I'm just pulling them up and I'll just share my screen as we go through them. But I'm having a little bit of technical issues. There we go. All right. Let me know if you guys can see this, and then in the comments, just let me know when you guys can see my screen as well, because I would hate to spend 60 minutes and have nothing on the screen this whole time. All right. Gaurav, can you guys see this live here?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll make this extra big. So, very first thing that I see, one, I appreciate how clean it is and simple. I think this is somebody that likely used one of our templates. I'm going to go through, and I'm actually going to start really quickly while Gaurav and Danielle, if you want to go through and read some of the actual content in here and give advice on that. Just a couple of things that stick out to me. You don't necessarily need your location here. I'm a big fan of anything that isn't needed or necessary, remove it from the resume, because it's usually just going to like take up space. The other thing is making sure that these are hyperlinked. It looks like they are, so great job there. And then as we go through this, I'll pause here and we'll start with the summary. Gaurav, do you want to give some feedback on the points that we want to make sure we're hitting in the summary?
Yeah, and while I do that, do you want to have a resume queued up real quick of what a strong, like just what a good resume looks like and what a strong summary looks like? So for this person, Carrie Ann, one of the things that we want to avoid in summaries, and we see this all the time, is using fluff. I call them fluff words. What are fluff words? Anything that is not quantifiable. So for example, right here, I'm reading dynamic health insurance professional. Then I'm reading impact-oriented problem solver. Then I'm like those two words right there, they're not needed. Again, to Katie's point, if it's not needed, don't include it. And the reason they're not needed, again, is because nobody knows what a dynamic health professional really is. Right? Yeah. What is the word dynamic? So instead, our philosophy and what we've seen convert extremely well is to have a summary that states the years of experience you have doing the thing that you're going after. So for you, Carrie Ann, instead of saying dynamic health professional, you could say, I would use the title. So for example, you could say senior consultant with over 7 years of experience working in the healthcare profession, and then talk about the type of work you've done. So then you'd say senior consultant with 7 years of experience working in the healthcare industry, focused on growth strategy, product development, and change management and risk management or digital transformation. So I would use like that sentence, she has specialized in growth strategy, product value prop, and move that to the top, because that is what's most important. And that's what your future employer is probably going to find relevant. They want to know, they're not looking for, is this person a dynamic healthcare professional? That's not what they're thinking when they start looking at resumes. They're thinking, what does this person do? How many years of experience does she have doing it? And then what is it that she's achieved for, in that time frame? So 7 years of experience as a senior consultant working in the healthcare industry, focused on strategy and operations, change management, product development, growth strategy, digital transformation, and risk management. Supported companies such as, because you worked at McKinsey, which is awesome, you can say something like worked with Fortune 50 to 500 clients, helping them achieve, and then you mentioned a few of your achievements. So remember that what an employer cares about is, what do you do? What problems have you solved? And then what was the impact of the work that you've done? So I'll stop there and turn it over to you or Danielle to see what you think.
Yeah, Danielle, I think that's probably good on the summary. Let's go down to the experience itself. And actually, before you do that, I'm having some real issues with zooming in. The other thing that I just want to point out that's really good is when you are building out your resume and you've got this chips up a lot. Actually, I'll wait until there's somebody a little bit more senior in their career. I was going to talk about, I thought she had another section here. So you can ignore what I just started to say. Danielle, any feedback on the first experience section here?
Yeah, I would just say, I mean, it's good to have the impacts and some of these achievements. But I think a big piece too, when we're looking at a resume, is how is it flowing? If you talked about, this is what I was hired to do, what did you do versus what did you achieve? So having it kind of split out in those areas really paints that clear picture. I was hired on to do, oh, thanks. That's perfect. So I led the transformation. I designed the KPIs. And because of what I did, this is what I accomplished. It gives me a great picture of this is somebody that is brought in to do something, but it doesn't just become something. It becomes something that is tangible, quantifiable. Look, there was an action that went with it.
Awesome. Yeah. The only other thing that I would add to that, I completely agree. Something that we've noticed is really helpful is putting what you did or like the quantifiable impact that your accomplishments had. If you start your bullet points with that, it reads much easier to show, to demonstrate, hey, I actually moved the needle in some way. I reduced, I decreased, I minimized, I saved, promoted, or if you helped people get promoted, you can just put that there as well. But that's just like a very small, that's not mandatory, just a small nuance to Danielle's point about it flowing and making it as easy as possible for somebody to see, oh, okay, this is somebody who cares about and understands what it takes to win in this role.
Yeah. And here, just a couple of things. And sorry if I'm repeating this. So when I see this, Carrie Ann, if you're on this, the first thing I get is reader's fatigue.
Yeah.
Right? Because there is so much information crammed into this one section that you probably have put so much gold in here. However, I, as a recruiter, I, as a hiring manager who only spends 6 seconds looking at a resume, or maybe 7 is what the stat is, I would probably glance over some of the great things that you've talked about only because it's so crammed in. So that's why a few things. One, we want to break apart the responsibilities from the accomplishments, make it very easy for their eyes, like to redirect their eyes for where you want it to go, like how we have right here. So the first few bullets are what I did. And then the next few bullets are here's what I helped this company or my clients achieve. Mm-hmm. That's point number one. Point number two, we see this a lot because many of our clients, like you, come from the world of consulting. And because of the, in consulting, you're working on so many different projects. And so it's really hard to understand or like think about, well, what should I talk about? Because I did so much. This is why it's really important to make sure you know what role you're targeting next. And I'm going to just share my screen for 1 second, because here's a good friend of mine, who's a past client I've helped. Here's how he worded his experience with his experience from his 7 years at Deloitte. And just like you, Carrie Ann, he worked on so many different projects. So he only focused on the projects that were the ones that were around digital transformation, because that's where he wanted to go. So he wanted to leave consulting to go into industry, and he only wanted to work on digital transformation projects. Now, he spent basically 7 years at Deloitte. He did so many different things. So we only included a signature accomplishment section, and every single accomplishment had to do with digital transformation. And you see, just to Katie's point earlier, it says transformed, designed, developed, led, leveraged, architected, moved. And then it has quantifiable data around what he actually helped them achieve. And so because of this, he would get so many phone calls and interview requests, and he was able to leverage this experience, the selected experience, to then go ahead and become a VP of digital transformation, and later an SVP, and now he's in the C-suite. Again, focusing all on digital transformation. So if you're on this call, let me know, and I can link this person's profile, or I can email it to you directly. But this could serve as a really good way of understanding how to write your resume. Here's what he did. Here's what he accomplished. So I'll stop.
And if I can, actually, something to add on to that too is when the accomplishments piece, another way to think about it is this is what you can do to solve a problem. So if an organization out there is looking for a head of product, a senior engineering manager, and they're looking at your resume, the thing that's going to attract them is, what did you solve? What did you achieve? And if they see similarities or anything relatable, wow, they reduced churn by 48%. Wow, that's something we really need right now in this position. Now they're going to read further. So the accomplishments section should also be what that 7 seconds of time that they spent looking at that resume is there for. How can this solve the problem that I currently have? Accomplishment. Now I want to read further. 7 seconds turns to 60 seconds, turns into a phone call.
Yep. 100%. And I think real quick before we go into the next one, just to highlight, because I think sometimes for those of you who are new, Danielle and Gaurav both have decades of recruiting experience. So they can rattle some of these things off where it's like, oh, but of course, if you're looking for this role, the only thing a recruiter and hiring manager is going to care about is this, and this. Everybody knows that. Not everybody knows that. So something that is a really good habit to get into is studying the job descriptions. Study 15, 20, 25 job descriptions of the one role that you're targeting so that you can start to get familiar with what is getting repeated across those roles. So for some things, like I'll give a quick example before we move on to the next one. And you guys, we'll share this document for anybody who would like it. We will give you this for some of the it's kind of like an ongoing living document for some of the roles that we spend a lot of time working with. If you're in customer success, these are essentially the only things, not the only things, these are the main things that a recruiter and hiring manager is going to care about. So you want to make sure your accomplishments speak to these things. And if you're a customer success leader, in addition to this, it's like, how have you led? How many folks have you helped get promoted, right? What is the size teams that you've led? All of that good stuff. Similarly for, project managers, when you're looking at what for project or program, what do they care about? Well, they care about the same things. They're scanning your profile to find the answers to these things so that they can go and tell a hiring manager, hey, I know you need somebody who's managed these size budgets in this manner. They have run scrum meetings, insert these things. This is what they're screening for. And you'll start to see the patterns of what they're screening for when you go through that job description research and you study, 15, 20 or so roles. So with that, I think we can move on to the next resume here. This one is going to be for a product. Let's see. Okay, well, this is good.
If you guys want this document, by the way, just let us. Can you drop it in the comments if you want us to send this to you, and then we'll make sure you get it.
Yeah. This is a perfect example. So when I opened this, I'm looking at it and I was about to say, okay, next one is a product manager. And then I read it a little bit more and it's like, okay, well, are they a product marketing manager? Who is this person? And what are the things, like you've got mostly, well, it looks like you've got a bit of both marketing and just pure product management. I'm going to let you take this one, Gaurav, because I'm a little bit confused as to the direction to take it.
So let me first start by saying what I love that Shalindra did here, if you can scroll to the top, is he put U.S. citizen. And by the way, Shalindra, I would have put this right next to your name in parentheses. Here's why, just so you guys know. So all my Indian peeps out there who have very Indian names like myself, okay? The bias is if they see a name that's super foreign sometimes, they might not want to reach out to you because the assumption that they're going to make, again, fair or unfair, is you might require sponsorship. And a lot of companies don't want to sponsor people, especially in today's market where there's so many good quality people available. So the one way to completely remove this bias quickly is by right next to your name, just put U.S. citizen or put green card holder, whatever it is, or just put does not require sponsorship. Okay. So I love that you did that. I would just move it to the top, Shalindra. Okay. Second. So the question is patent winning product leader with 14 plus years of experience conceptualizing, developing and launching unique, innovative and privacy centric products that generate multi-million-dollar revenue streams. This is actually not bad. The one thing I would do is condense it. So I would say senior product leader, in parentheses, patent winning, with 14 plus years, or just put 15 years of experience, just make it quick, simple, building go-to-market strategies for, then you talk about the industries that you're in for privacy-centric products that have generated, and then put a number. So we don't want to say multi-million dollar. So just say that has generated $15 million in aggregate. Okay. Revenue streams for startups and Fortune 100 enterprises. I think that's a really strong, summary. And then the other thing I would do is I would say most product managers either directly or indirectly lead teams, right? So you're certainly guiding, full stack developers, UX professionals, maybe project managers, business analysts. So if you've done that, I would say experience also includes leading and guiding and mentoring cross-functional teams that have included, and then put some of the titles of the people that you've led. That's a really, it's something that's going to help you stand out.
So here's an example that you can screenshot.
Oh, perfect. Yeah.
Yep.
There you go. Especially the other cool thing is if some of these products were global or your teams were globally distributed, you want to make mention of that, because a hiring manager will, if their company is global, they're going to want to make sure that you know how to manage people on different times, in different time zones and things like that. So if Shalindra, you did that, or your teammates were globally distributed, I would make mention of that, just like the example Katie gave. And then I think what you're doing is these bullets that you have, it's good that you have those, because those are what recruiters are going to search for. I wouldn't have them bulleted out. I would just have skills, and then just list out the skills from left to right. So
yeah, and we usually
like
put that at the bottom, just because, like, again, that real estate at the top, that's great for them searching. And we want to make sure that you've got them somewhere. But for that to be the first thing that they see isn't necessarily going to be as beneficial as, career highlights might be, or again, like those the quantifiable wins that you've helped companies achieve.
And this is for Shalindra specifically. If you have 15 plus years of experience, then there's a really good chance that throughout your career, you've accomplished a lot. So for somebody like you who's likely trying to level up, one of the sections we would certainly add, again, this is for anyone listening who has at least 10 or more years of experience. And even if you have less, it's fine too. You want to have a career highlight section. So think of it like this. The summary is the teaser trailer to the movie. The career highlight section is the trailer, the full trailer to the movie. The responsibility section is like the action sequence of a movie, what the hero or heroine is doing to accomplish their desired goal. And then the accomplishment section is the conclusion, the happily ever after part. Mm-hmm. So if you want to scroll down and then talk a little bit about the responsibilities or accomplishments.
Yeah. The other thing is I would just keep in mind, similar to the last one, anything that's not needed here, or especially if you're looking in the US, like put it in November 2022, January 2024, like little subtle things like that. You don't necessarily need this. And then making sure that you're formatting. So this is going to be the first person's experience of you, especially if you're in a product role, or this is especially true for marketing folks. We want the formatting to be really clean and uniform. So all of this, like different page margins and different, whatever you want to call it, different spacing over here, we want to clean all of that up to make it uniform. Then when we get into the professional experience, similar to what we were just talking about, this is where you can have a paragraph form like this for your responsibilities. That's fine. That's actually fairly common for people who are a little bit more senior in their career. But we want to make sure we're segmenting out the responsibilities and the quantifiable accomplishments that you had. So what are some of the things that you were responsible for? And then again, so it's like if you're going for a more senior role, or you're going for a leadership role, what what are the teams that you've owned? What are the teams that you've managed? What's the impact? How have you dispersed your knowledge to other people? How have you helped other people get promoted through training, through mentorship? Things like that go a really long way in the responsibilities and accomplishments section. So just making sure you've got both of those.
Yeah, because what you're doing is you're selling yourself short big time here, Shalindra. You're limiting all of this experience to 3 bullets. And I know you're probably thinking, well, I only have so much room to talk about it. So remember, the mindset we want to carry when we're thinking about writing our resume is, what does this hiring manager, what does my future boss likely care about? And he or she will likely care more about what you help this company achieve as a product leader versus what you simply did. Because what you did is going to be fairly common across all product roles. All of you are doing the same things: customer segmentation analysis, building go-to-market strategies, whatever. But what you achieved is what completely separates you from the next person. So I would add that. And if you want, I can should I show Stephen Clark's LinkedIn profile real quick?
Sure.
So here's one for a product leader, somebody that we recently helped, and here's how his reads. And it got, I mean, actually, I can even show Catherine. Well, here, whatever, Stephen Clark.
I feel like Danes is a good one too.
Danes is a great one. Yeah, I could show that. So here, Shalinda, this one might be very relatable to you. So.
Cool. And while you're pulling that up, I'll drop the link for that resume guide right in the comments here, so you guys have it too.
All right. So you see, going back to the summary, how many years of experience you have doing the thing that you did, generating 100 plus. So he's not saying multi-million, he's actually giving a specific number. And then what else he did. Now, you go down, this is the job that he literally just got from our program. And then this is how he would write. So here's what he did: led cross-functional teams, kind of like you, Shalindra. And then here is how, here's what he actually achieved. And he has this for every single one of his roles. Now you might think, whoa, isn't this going to make the resume 50 pages? It's like, no, it's really only like 2.5. So anyway, just hopefully this gives you some added color, and I'll put his LinkedIn profile in here too.
Yeah, and usually with it's very, very, very rare that we actually need more than 2 pages for the resume. And this is one of those opinion ones. Danielle, I'd actually be curious where you fall on the spectrum. Gaurav is like, dude, if it takes you 12 pages, get 12 pages. He doesn't care. Just not really, but he's okay with 3 pages. I do know there's a lot of people who are really strict on the 2 pages. I will say there's usually some very minor tweaks to formatting and layout. That's typically what I'll do with folks, where it's like, okay, let's make sure we have all the content. Not worried about formatting. Let's make sure we have the meat and potatoes of what we want on there. Usually for somebody who has 10 plus years of experience, when you're getting all of that just on paper, it usually ends up being like 2.5 to 3 pages. And then I'll go through with our clients and I'll format it down and I'll clean up spacing. I'll clean up some grammar things to shorten some of it so that we get them to 2 pages. But Danielle, I don't think I've actually ever asked you this. Where do you stand on the two-page resume? And this is for people more than 10 years of your career. If you've got less than 10 years of your career, you never have an option.
Yeah, I would say, also depends on the level of the role, the size of the companies. If you've worked for a lot of startups, you're wearing a lot of hats. So I would say if you've got 10 plus years, 2 to 3, that's acceptable. And I agree with Gaurav. Recruiters are spending minimal time looking at it. So you just really want to highlight those achievements. I would say if you got 20 years experience, worked in larger organizations, you've had a lot of progression. Yeah, now you're probably going to see maybe closer to the 4-page, because you want to be able to explain in each of the progressive roles that you've had. I went from senior manager to director to senior director. Each of those things are going to have elevated responsibilities and elevated achievements that you've had. So now we might see the resume get an additional page. If you're adding fluff and that's what's creating a longer page resume, I would say eliminate the fluff. We all love that you love hiking. We all love that you love to ski. I think that's awesome, but they're hiring you for X. Hit that.
Yes, and that's one of the ways to reduce it down is going right back to what Katie mentioned on the beginning of this call, which is when you let's say you're going for a group product manager role, and if you study 15 to 20 different group product director of product job descriptions, you will see a throughput, meaning each of these job descriptions keep asking for the same 5 to 7 things. So now you know I only need to talk about those 5 to 7 things. I don't need to talk about everything else. And if you were part of an organization and you stayed there for like 7 years, 10 years, and you moved up, you don't even potentially need to talk about the first role you had with that organization. Really, you just need to talk about the most relevant role. And then you could say, promote one of your bullets under achievement could be promoted 3 times in the last 3 years or whatever.
Yeah.
You want to go to the next one?
Real quick, before we move on to the next one, because I think this is going to be helpful for quite a few folks, especially if you're more senior in your career. If we look at your, let's see, if we're looking at your later, you actually did a pretty good job down here with the 2013 and previous roles. However, these are going to be the things that you've done that are not quite as relevant as a general role to the more senior role that you're going after now. So actually this formatting down here gives us a far better idea of what you're actually able to accomplish. The one thing I'd recommend is making sure you have that for recent experience, and then anything that's more than 10 years, you can just put that into an other experience section like we have here, and just have company name, your title, and that's it. And then that's going to also save you some space as well. So for some of those folks who are like, oh my gosh, I need to talk about when I was a barista at Starbucks, 20 years ago, you don't need to put that on there. Or if you are going for a CMO role now and you used to be a copywriter, is that good to know? Especially if you were a copywriter, for Microsoft or something? Sure. Yeah, that's great. But we don't need to know the nuances of your copywriting skills for you to be a really good chief marketing officer. So that's where you can include really relevant or strong company names or things that or like this is one, it was really interesting to have this on her resume because she was going for enablement roles or a solution engineer's role. So the fact that she had that teaching background was actually a massive, massive bonus for her. And it made her, stand out a little bit from other folks. All right. Now on to the next one here. We have got Blake, and this is a project manager resume. Let's see. Can you guys see that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So this is somebody similar formatting, and that document that we just shared, you can take the exact format. Everybody uses the same text-only format in our program. You can just grab the Google Doc copy of that right from that guide that we just shared. I would recommend making it. I actually didn't see your name at first or any of your contact information. So I would just make it really clear. I wouldn't necessarily have a black background for that. And then moving these skills qualifications, you can scooch those down to the bottom. And then let's see here. So you're talking about being an experienced project manager, but it looks like you've got some development experience. So this is where if you're going for a project manager role, I don't know that you're necessarily sharing the things that a recruiter and hiring manager really cares about for a project manager role. I think these are, for technical roles, that's awesome, that's great, but we want to make sure we're hitting that checklist. If you're going for a project manager role, we want to make sure we're hitting that checklist of the things that they actually care about. So making sure, especially in that summary section, you include some of these things as well. Let's see. And then for the work experience, a similar feedback there, making sure we're segmenting so that its responsibilities are really clear and then your accomplishments are really clear. So when you're dealing with a project or a program manager, or their responsibilities and their accomplishments, oftentimes it's going to be, were you able to come in, ahead of schedule and under budget? Were you able to reduce complexities? Were you able to, there's all sorts of things. Were you able to save the company money by improving efficiencies, whatever the case may be? Those are going to be the things that are really important in these responsibilities and accomplishments section. And then Gaurav or Danielle, anything that you want to add in there? I'm assuming this is for project. I'm assuming he's optimizing for project manager roles.
I mean, I wouldn't talk in first person.
Yes, good point.
So going right back to some of the things we've mentioned, I think I would start by saying project manager with over 6 years of experience doing X, Y, and Z things. And those X, Y, and Z things should be things that a hiring manager is looking for a project manager to do, right? Yep. So 6+ years of experience managing multiple projects simultaneously with budgets that range from $300,000 to $1.5 million, working cross-functionally across engineering, leadership, product, marketing, and finance to help them, de-escalate risks and make the projects run more efficiently and with a track record of delivering projects 97%, with a track record of delivering 97% of projects under schedule or ahead of schedule. So I would always talk, I just wouldn't talk in first person, and I would make sure we highlight the years of experience you have doing the thing that a project manager would be doing. Mm-hmm. So that would be my immediate feedback. Danielle, anything you want to add to this?
No, spot on.
Yeah, no, that was spot on. I would also say, like, a lot of these things, like, you already have that in your education, so you don't necessarily need to use. Actually, you don't have your mass. Okay. Like, you don't need to use this really great real estate for your education up here.
Yeah, and just FYI for anyone, if you have a resume that has like graphs, graphics, charts, it's kind of designed really aesthetically pretty and whatever, those versions do not convert really well in applicant tracking systems, just FYI. So if so our rule of thumb is you always want to have what we call just the most basic, simple resume, clean text, that's it. If you feel the need to have a resume that includes some graphics, that's the one you will send directly to some human being if and when they ask for it. But for the purposes of the applicant tracking system, you want to keep it extremely basic, no graphics, no headers, whatever.
Yep. Cool. Do we have time for one more?
Yeah. Is this helpful for those who are on live? And we have so many people on live. It seems like we might need to do a part 2 of this. So if you guys want a part 2, let us know as well.
Cool. Well, then I'm very curious to hear your opinions on this one. Gaurav, I'll start with you. This is somebody, so there's a ton of great content on this resume, ton of really great keywords. There's a ton of great, actionable things, but they decided to go the route of splitting it up into projects. So I'm going to scroll through so you can have an idea of like the whole thing. What are your thoughts? What are your feelings on segmenting in this way, where it's walking through all of the projects and organizing in that? I've seen that become very, very vogue recently. Am I using that right? I don't know if that's the right phrase. In style.
I would not have it like this because going back to what I think it was like Carrie Ann's resume. I think what this does, the second it comes in front of a recruiter or a hiring manager, again, is it causes readers fatigue. You feel the need to talk about all these things. The reader will not read these things. Yep. And because they're seeing too much information, it's like, think of it like this. Does anyone here know like what a listicle is? A listicle is an article that says the 5 ways to lose weight, the 10 ways to make $1 million, the 3 ways to do whatever. Why are those things so popular? They're popular because we, as the readers, know the second we click on this, we can scroll right to the meat and potatoes of the article and then get what we need and leave. But if we said the 3 ways to, make $1 million in the next 10 years, and then the article was like 7,000 characters long, and then the meat and potatoes was just kind of buried in there somewhere, we won't stay on that article. We won't find value in it. And it's the same thing. It's even worse, actually, as a recruiter or hiring manager. They're looking only for the meat and potatoes. So all of that you have there, those broken out projects, I would actually have that as like an addendum, like a separate document that you can send to the recruiter or hiring manager post receiving an interview request. But the purpose of the resume and your LinkedIn profile is simply to get an interview. And so to do that, we want to only put what is relevant to the reader and not overwhelm them in the process of doing that. So in the career highlights section that you have here, Manish, I love that you have that. I would use that section to talk about a few of these projects that you've done that had the most impact and that were the most relevant to your target audience, meaning the future hiring managers that you're going to be interviewing with. So that would be my advice.
Awesome. And I think something, I'm just going to pull up real quick, something to keep in mind for folks who don't have, and this was something that was so fascinating the first time you showed this to me, Garb. When we say a recruiter doesn't spend a ton of time looking at your resume, it's not because they're looking at all of these documents and that's where their starting point is. What happens on the back end of these systems is they're literally typing in their keywords, and then they're only picking the resumes that have, X percentage match or whatever the case may be for those specific keywords. So that's why we kind of harp on the keyword optimization. Then once you bypass, the keyword checklist, so to speak, then we don't want them to get that reader's fatigue. We want it to be really easy for them to pick out those same things that they were just searching for. We want it to be really easy for them to pick out how you have worked on those types of things and the impact that it made to the companies or the teams, the departments that you were working on. If you're able to go through that process, so you're showing, this is literally what it will show. They search for these words and then they will see people who say, excellent match. This is somebody who has an excellent match. This is somebody who's a good match. That's how we get to the excellent match, is having those keywords. That's when we're talking about like the systems. There's still a human that's then looking at it. So now if the human sees, okay, this person's an excellent match, and then they look, what happens when they pull up your resume, they will see all of these things and they're looking for these words. And if there's nothing quantifiable attached to these words, it's like, okay, were you good at it? Like, you ran Google ads, but did you lose $4.2 million on those ads? Did you make your company $8.2 million? Like, what's the story behind that? And they will scan and look for what is most important to them. So, and same thing on the back end for LinkedIn as well there. So I think that is probably something that's helpful for a lot of folks, because I know there's always that stat, 6 or 7 seconds, but I think knowing, okay, well, what are they seeing in those 6 or 7 seconds is really helpful. Awesome. Okay. Let's see. Is there any questions from folks who are watching this live? Are there any questions that you guys have based on this? And maybe Gaurav, maybe we will do another one of these and give folks an opportunity to like make edits, and then we can come on live and see some of those edits. And in that guide, for those of you who are looking at it, I'll paste a link here because I know sometimes the comments get wonky again. In that guide, there is a video. Actually, I'll just send you right to the video. That'll be easier. For anybody who's more like me, I do far better when somebody has like a video explainer walking me through step by step. So you can grab, it's in the document, but it's a little bit hidden. You can grab like the video itself right there at that website. But for the folks who are live, any questions that you guys have Ben was asking, do we have a template for, what is this? Would you by any chance have a template for a technical recruiter that I could cross-reference perhaps? Let me see. There's not one on that document. We had one on the old one. I might be able to add that before the end of the day.
Oh, this was great. I think this is super helpful. I think maybe a part 2 might be something we look at.
Yeah, absolutely. I know we couldn't get to everyone's resumes today, so we can definitely do that. But Ben, you're speaking to somebody who's headed up HR at Estee Lauder, somebody who's been a recruiter herself, somebody who's managed and developed a lot of recruiters. Danielle, do you want to let him know what another recruiter would be searching for, or a hiring manager would be looking for if they were recruiting for a technical recruiter?
Yeah, so if I was hiring for a technical recruiter, I want to see what positions you were recruiting for, engineering, DevOps, and then out of those technical positions, how many and how large of departments? Were you working with managers? Were you working with teams? So I really want to dig into that piece of my technical recruiter. I also want to know that as a technical recruiter, are you also a part of the interview training process? Because a lot of times with technical recruiters, you're a partner. You're a huge partner to hiring managers in the other departments. And I don't want somebody that's just going to sit there and screen. What are you looking for? Why are you interested? What are you looking to make, and pass it on? You can really up your game and show real value as a technical recruiter if you also talk and show about how you partnered with the business to hire 50 engineers in 6 months, how you led training events to hire, 3x DevOps professionals over the course of a year. That's something I really want to see in a technical recruiter. I don't know, Gaurav, you hired the same thing, right?
Yeah, I think those are all great points. The other thing I want to see if I'm a hiring manager is, what did you put into place, or what did you do that decreased the time to fill ratio? So you could say prior time to fill ratio was 73 days, implemented advanced recruiting strategies such as blah, 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 that decreased the time to fill ratio down to 61 days or 57 days or whatever. That would be super cool.
And on that too, if you haven't, let's say you're only a technical recruiter for three to 5 years, that's okay. You can also mention what Gaurav just said, but you can say that you were a part of it, part of the team that came up with this, assisted in developing. It shows that you are doing so much more than sitting in your chair and recruiting, that you're raising your hand, you're helping out, you're learning more. That's really what we're going to read on a resume when we see somebody doing that.
Yeah. That's great. Hey, Katie, I think this might be a good question for you to weigh in on.
What are your suggestions for roles that seem less relevant but aren't necessarily the oldest positions chronologically? Still move down to the other experience. I'm going to say it depends. What makes you think that it's not relevant? And is there anything that you did in that role that is relevant to the next role that you're going for? So, and maybe I can even pull you up on LinkedIn and see if I can spot what you think is relevant or not relevant. So, like, if I'm looking at your history right now, you've got curriculum developer, content leader, teacher, facilitator, coach. All of the things that you have on here are extremely relevant if you are going to learning experience roles. Let me see if there's any gaps on here. So maybe you've already removed them. It looks like maybe there was a 2-year gap in there. If there's anything that's really, it's like, hey, during that time you were a barista, whatever the case may be, and there's nothing that you can pull, then yes, I would just leave that out and not worry about it, so long as the rest of it is really strong, and then you can address those different gaps. Again, I think there's only that one gap there. You can put what you did in that gap if it was relevant.
Yeah. Well, hey everyone, thank you. And thank you for having me on this. I got to jump. I got something I got to go prep for here in a little bit, but thank you for having me. I love that we're doing this. Reach out, let us know if you need anything. Have a good one.
Yes.
Yeah, cool. Thank you, everyone. Yeah, like Danielle said, I know we couldn't get to everyone's resumes today. So one thing I think we should do is we can certainly do another part to this and maybe draw it out a little bit longer so we can get to more. So for those of you who are still on this call, maybe what I would recommend you do is let us know. If you're not following us, just add us on LinkedIn, DM us your resume. So that way we know that this is something that's valuable to you. And then what we'll do is we'll schedule a part 2 of this very soon and make sure that we email each of you directly, or we'll create another event, but we'll make sure that you specifically, since you're following us, get that notification to join this workshop. And the next one, I'll just make sure we do it a little bit longer too, so that way we can help more people. But
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you so much for everyone who joined. Give us a like if this was helpful, so we get this recording out to more people. And if you do need to go back to this video will be saved onto my LinkedIn profile under posts. Okay.
Yep.
Thanks
And
so much,
real
everyone.
quick, before we hop off, I wanted to answer just one more where somebody asked, does posting your resume work? What websites are best, Monster, etc. I'm going to just share my screen real quick and I'll show you guys the list that we have our clients post to. But the one thing that I want to end on here, and I actually don't think we mentioned it anywhere, so I'll just leave this here so you can take a screenshot of it. But something that, let's see. Oops. Maybe not. Did that work?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the one thing that that we always emphasize is your resume is never going to be the thing that gets you the job. So when somebody asks, well, does it work well? Working well in the application, in the job, the resume space is 2%. If you're getting 2% conversion, that's working well. The thing that's going to matter so much more is going to be the messages that you send to these recruiters, hiring managers, executives, and things like that. So I do think that's something good to know, and maybe we'll do a follow-up, a part 2.5 or part 3 on just like those outreach messages. But let us know what is most helpful for you guys, and we will take it from there.
Hold on, one more thing. Sorry, last thing.
Oh.
For the 93 people who are on here, I'm gonna plug something shamelessly, but it's not gonna cost you anything. So if you are not a part of our newsletter, I would highly recommend joining, because we are going to drop this very soon. Let me show you what we're dropping. So Katie, you might want to link the job description, but this is what you will get. I'm just in the process of making some final edits, but everything we've ever taught, everything we've ever learned, we put it into this guide. I mean, this is a very drawn out guide, and it walks you through the entire process we coach our clients on, that we've been coaching our clients on since 2016. It starts with mindset, then defining where you're going, then the importance of how to write a LinkedIn profile and a resume. How do you network with people? How do you interview really well? And each of these go into very specific frameworks. And then we have resources all littered all throughout this. So like even specifically for LinkedIn, we kind of show you different examples of what to do, what to say, what not to do, how to write some of the things. Again, product management leaders. So we have broken down everything you need to execute a job search effectively, and not just land a job, but get a job doing something that you actually enjoy, working for a company that you actually admire. And like, look at all of our, so in here, you'll find all of our networking strategies. We give you templates of literally what to say to people, what's worked, what hasn't. So if you're not part of our newsletter, make sure that you do sign up for this, because once the edits are done to this, that's where we're going to release it. And it's going to be completely free, by the way. So again, just wanted to share this. It has everything from start to finish that you'll need to execute a job search correctly.
Okay. Now, any final comments? Any thoughts, comments, questions, qualms that you'd like to share?
All right. If
No,
not, appreciate everyone so much.
no, I
Thanks.
was asking
For
you,
joining.
not them. There's too
Oh,
much
for
of a
me?
delay.
Oh, no, I
Yeah.
don't have any. I mean, I'm telling you, I mean, we've worked with like 800 people now. I will say almost 8 times out of 10, every single human being that we work with, they're so much closer than they think. I think as a job seeker, it is extremely overwhelming to think of all the things we have to do. And more often than not, there's only a few tweaks that you have to make to certain things that you're already doing that will completely transform. It's like the 80-20 rule, right? So you tweak 20% of the things that you're doing, and you will literally see an 80% increase in your productivity. So in this guide, it kind of walks you through that. But anyone who's on here and who's searching for a job, I know it can feel frustrating. I really do. I've been there myself. But just know you're probably a lot closer than you think. And the reason we put this together is at the end of the day, the one point I want to stress is it's never a you problem. It's always a how you're marketing yourself problem. And that the cool thing to that is that can be fixed pretty quickly. So don't give up. Go after what you want. And sign up for this newsletter if you haven't. We will be sharing this ebook there very soon.
Awesome. All right. We'll talk to you guys next week.
All right. Bye.